when the very idea of living a life that does not satisfy your soul's burning desire to express its incredible light through you is far more painful than any work you have to do to prepare the way for that to happen, no matter what, that's when you know you're doing the work.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Photography Radio. My name is Tomasz, and today you are listening to The Woo with Karen Hutton, where she muses up a tasty blend of inspiration, photography, and life. Enjoy.
Can you imagine your life without photography? No? Then you will love this show. And it doesn't matter if you're a DSLR, a mirrorless, or a mobile phone shooter. We're here to help your photography grow. This is Photography Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Karen Hutton. Welcome to The Woo. Now, I really enjoy pulling out thoughts that a lot of us know, maybe know really well, but talk about it, turn it over a little bit, see if there's some new light we can shine on it. Because sometimes you do that and it just changes everything. And for me personally, this one about do your work, which is what this show is about, is one of those ideas. See, I grew up on a ranch. It wasn't like a big 1,000-acre working cattle ranch or anything like that. It was more of a ranchette. 20 acres in Sonoma Valley, surrounded by awesome neighbors who had hundreds of acres more that we could freely go on. We had horses, dogs, cats, and this one chicken who showed up injured one day, and once we healed it up, it never left. Now, none of this was a given for us kids. We had to earn it. There was grades in school, feeding, cleaning, and taking care of the animals, even when it wasn't really that much fun or convenient to do so. Training hard for competitions, staying focused, never giving up, having a good attitude. Those are kid rules, but honestly, they kind of apply to adult living too. And I never minded any of it. I mean, I loved our life on the ranch. And in the process, I became something of an overachiever. Family and friends are rolling their eyes at that right now. But as long as I showed up and worked my hiney off, my parents were willing to help me get where I wanted to go. So that was the price that I was perfectly willing to pay. However, that did not include university, much to their chagrin, because everybody in my family had a degree and I just didn't want to go. I wanted to be an actor. In fact, I used to tell them, I want to be able to think an original thought at the end of the day. So, number one, I didn't want to go to university. Number two, I wanted to be an actor. So let's just say they were a little less than thrilled about that trajectory. But I presented a strong case and we found a meeting ground. I would still pursue higher education. I would just do it my way, at the best acting schools I could find. And so that's exactly what I did. And that's what I have always done, gone to the best experts I could find and educated myself in whatever it was I wanted to know. And it was only years later that I realized that what I did was actually art, at least by today's definition. Seth Godin, if you don't know Seth Godin, go look him up. He's amazing. He says it in such a lovely way. This is his quote. Your art is what you do when no one can tell you exactly how to do it. Your art is the act of taking responsibility, challenging the status quo, and changing people. That's your art. That's your true calling as an artist. That's what he says. So there you go. I knew the direction I wanted to go, even if I wasn't sure how it would all turn out. I took responsibility for it. I challenged the status quo for my higher education in my own family and changed everyone's perspective in the process because I was successful and I got there in a completely alternate way. And ultimately, instead of bugging me about it, they actually all really respected me for it. All I knew at the time was that I would rather die than give up on my dreams. Furthermore, and rather more challenging though, I always wanted the thing I loved to be the thing I made a living at. That's tougher. So in acting school, I learned profound ways to consider doing your work, and they inform me to this day. For instance, this is cross-training. We've talked about cross-training. This is a bit of that, talking about acting and applying it to art and photography. For instance, the script. Sometimes they called the script the piece or the play, and the director's vision for it was king. It was our job to bring that to life. We were in service of the work. We did all this training in acting school so that we could serve the work in more authentic, real, and honest ways. So we were in service of the work, but it also meant doing the work of being able to bring ourselves to the piece to bring it to life. So it was a kind of a combo depending on which way you looked at it. So that meant learning our parts, memorizing the script and the blocking, and then going deep inside to embody the tools and techniques that would enable us to become the character and be convincing and be in the moment. And then after that, do it once, that's great, but then you had to keep it fresh and always new, like we were thinking of and uttering the words for the very first time, even if we were cast in an 8-show-a-week production. And like any art, it sounds way easier than it is, but that was the blue sky fun of it. Acting was never the same because you're never the same. You change from moment to moment, day to day, and it was never boring. And then the same idea in sports. Doing your work was a top priority there too. Some common thought forms in figure skating. There was this 10,000 spin rule. You had to do that many spins before you're any good at them, which meant being able to spin in one spot and have it not wander all over the rink as you were spinning. So get busy. You got 10,000 spins. Go. Edge control, stamina, grace, you needed all those things too, and there seemed to be an endless supply of painful drills and exercises designed to build each and every one of those qualities that we wanted to have, with hours and hours of dance classes on top of that. Doing your work was physical and time-consuming, and it cost money and a lot of brain power. You do the work. Downhill skiing, same thing. Even though I had been a professional figure skater, when I learned to ski, some of the ways you use edges are reversed. So what that resulted in was an astounding number of crash and burns on my part that I just felt like I shouldn't have fallen. So right at the beginning, I realized what I was in for. So I assigned myself the 2-year rule. There's all these little rules around doing your work, right? So my 2-year rule was just show up, do the work, do the drills, do the training, get the lessons, get on the hill, spend the hours, just don't judge yourself, just shut up and work, and don't expect to be any good for 2 years. And even after that, you may not be good, but at least you're not going to be crashing and burning like you are now. That's what I said to myself. Now, I'm not an innately patient person, so just get in the mindset and quit whining and get going. That really helped me adjust my expectations, stay patient, do the drills, build the reflexes and the strength that I needed to do. In short, do the work. So everything you do has a do the work piece to it. And I've talked in other episodes about drills and exercises and ways of thinking, and this is all part of doing your work. They're all different aspects of it. So then that's doing the art or doing the sport or doing the whatever it is. But then what about business? I had been self-employed my whole adult life. I was a teacher in writing, figure skating, acting, voice, you name it. 45 years. Everything I'd ever learned, I ended up teaching. And that was all pretty simple. I mean, I had done my work, I showed up, I taught, and it was all sort of like, I see a client, I get paid, boom. That was that model, that in-person model. So then, in my infinite wisdom, I decided it was time to go full circle to actually live my life as an art and leap back into photography. So at a certain point in that trajectory, I realized I knew literally nothing about running an online business. And this sport had to be done online. Talk about a holy crap moment. That was daunting, believe me. But I went back to the drawing board to educate myself the way I know to do for me. So I went back to school. This time I did it online. I started with Marie Forleo's B School, and then I moved on to others for more specialized kinds of learning, and read books and watched videos and hired coaches. And I spent a couple of years doing the work of learning my business. And it continues. I mean, it really, really never stops. Every day you got to show up and do your work. After all these years, I realized that in order for your dreams to take flight, to become actual lived experiences, you just have to show up and do the work every day. Now, that could mean learning your craft better. That could mean learning to focus better, make more specific, meaningful choices as an artist, to become more confident, overall as a human, period. You might have to learn how to run your camera better or learn some new way to post-process that you've been craving to do. Maybe you need to figure out how to run a business online or research your ass off because you want to head a new direction next year and you don't know the first thing about it. Well, get busy. Learn it. Set the big dream into motion in big and small ways by taking some kind of action and do something every day, no matter what. Do the work. Sometimes the work is taking a break, listening to music, cross-training, reading about somebody else's life, eating better, sleeping more or sleeping less, drinking more, drinking less. Whatever it is, do it. So then, how do you know if you're doing the work versus just engaging in a distraction? That is a really good question, and I hope it's one you're asking. Here's one of the ways I use for myself, because when you're doing the work, it is in service of the dream. Meaning everything you're doing is in service of making the dream happen. It makes every bit of work, the dance classes I did for figure skating, the physical training I did for skiing and for horseback riding and everything, meant that the spin eventually stayed in one spot, that I mastered the mountain, that I turned in the performance of a lifetime, because it's all about getting in your zone and having all this ability, confidence, focus, technique. It's that place where they all blend and become the instant where you show up and you do your thing full out in your zone. That's the goal, so that everything you're doing should be focused that direction and in service of that dream, that vision, and that moment where it all comes together. Even if you have a day-to-day job to pay the bills that isn't your dream, because I hear this a lot, my God, I have this horrible job and I hate it, and what I really want to do is quit my job and go over here. Maybe there'll be a moment when that's right, but here's another way. If you have to keep your job to pay the bills, honey, that job is in service of the dream. You wake up every day and you know that in your heart. You have to. It's in service of, and it changes your whole perspective. You make it work for you. It's not a distraction. It's in service of, it's supporting you. It's holding the space so that you don't have to worry about hand to mouth while you're building your dream the way you want it to be, so that you don't have to compromise. It's all part of doing your work to sustain yourself as you build that dream into reality. That's the bottom line. A lot of people miss this bit, but it's so key. We've all had to do that. This is why you have to stay focused and love what you do, your photography, your art, so much that it sustains you when you're kind of hating on everything else. You have to love the thing so much that you want it more than anything and be willing to do what it takes to get there. The thing you desire, like I said a minute ago, it has to be bigger than the of doing your work when you don't feel like it. It has to also be bigger than any squirrel distraction. That's a good one for a lot of us. So the bottom line, how do you know when you're doing your work? When the very idea of living a life that does not satisfy your soul's burning desire to express its incredible light through you is far more painful than any work you have to do to prepare the way for that to happen, no matter what, that's when you know you're doing the work. The process of doing your art and living your life as if it were your art is the best kind of work there is. So, I hope this conversation lends a little bit of a new light to doing the work. I hope you enjoyed this little thought process today. And if you have thoughts, comments, ideas, I'd love to hear them. In fact, if you have a topic you want to hear discussed, let me know that too. 2 ways you can do that. One is to go to www.photographyradio.com/Karen and fill out the form. The other is to write an email to me directly at thewoo@KarenHutton.com. And I will catch you next time. See ya.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hit subscribe on your podcast app. It would mean a lot for us to have you as our regular listener. Head over to photographyradio.com to drop your suggestion for future editions of Photography Radio or simply to say hello. We would absolutely love to hear from you. In the meantime, have a wonderful night and we will be back with more photography in your ears very soon.